There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart, that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Rank and File Radio, a program about work, the labor movement, and sticking it to the man.
Tune in Wednesday evenings, 5:30 to 6 p.m. on CFRC 101.9 FM. Welcome back to Rank and File Radio. So what's happening at CP Rail? Well, despite her appeal to protecting the Canadian economy, Labour Minister Lisa Raitt remains silent on CP's decision to lay off 2,000 workers during the strike by members of the Teamsters Canada Rail Conference. Most of these workers are those who work in the rail yards, engineering, and mechanical areas. As business associations like the Western Wheat Growers Association and the Canadian Chamber of Commerce clamour to have the federal government legislate striking workers back to work, or even go further by deeming rail service an essential service, none of the bodies address the economic catastrophe facing CP employees and the assault on their hard-fought pensions.
Lisa Raitt threatened back-to-work legislation less than a day after the CP rail strike started on Wednesday, May 23rd. 4,800 conductors, engineers, and traffic controllers took to the picket lines to defend against CP Rail's attempt to extend working hours and cut their pension plan by 40%. Rank and File Radio spoke to striking CP workers at the picket line in Smiths Falls, Ontario on May 24th. Here's what one veteran employee and union member had to say about the company and what's at stake.
What are your thoughts on the strike vote that came out?
Yeah, I did. Actually, never voted for strike in 27 years, but it has to do with pensions and cap pensions, and it's not a, at the end of the day, I don't have time to make up the money that I put into a defined pension plan, which a lot of people don't understand. It restricts you to invest other money. So they want to cap it, but they want to devalue your pension by 40%, which is, in my opinion, illegal and wrong, morally wrong. Yeah, we have certain things in our collective agreement. We only have to work 10 hours. They would like us to work 12, and basically work tired. Come to work. We don't have a schedule. We work on a board where your name comes up to the top. They call the train. You get a 2-hour call, and you go to work. You don't. We don't have any year-long schedule. We don't. So you're always tired, continually tired, always. And they want to take that. At least we have 10 hours. We only, in our collective agreement, it says we only have to work 10 hours, and we do that. And anybody that wants to work 12 can. But I mean, it's a safety issue. It is.
Considering there is a safety issue, as I just mentioned, what does the company say in response when workers in the union say that there are serious issues here with fatigue and safety on the rails?
Well, they'll tell everybody that everything is cool and it's all well and done, or well and good safety-wise. But I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, that they would like you to work, take a train, work 12 hours, and get off that train and go back. I mean, and with the least manpower they could possibly have here. And I mean, to get it, we don't get sick days. We don't get paid for them. Personal leave, we don't get any paid time that way. You have to, if you want to go away, you want to make arrangements to do stuff. You can't. You have to talk to somebody, and you just can't take time off. So, in saying that to you, I mean, what do you want us to do? Work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year? Basically, if they could, they would.
I've heard some other guys talking about how many of the CP workers, such as yourself and others, are shareholders in the company.
Absolutely.
At the recent CEO, what was his name? Fred Green. Yeah. He resigned before he was likely to get ousted by the shareholders.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on his performance as CEO and as the head of the company?
Well, I mean, his performance, well, that's for debate. But as far as the CEO and his, I guess basically he was six years in. I don't know. I mean, he obviously he must have thought he was worth his $20-some million that he got when he resigned. Plus, he gets his pension. I don't know. I mean, here we are on strike because we're fighting for our pension, and this guy's leaving a company that's everyone says is undervalued, great company to work for, and he's getting his money, but we aren't. I mean, everybody just wants a fair shake. That's it. Seriously, there's issues with unions for sure, but at the same time, when the rank and file, most of the people that are here on strike probably don't want to be on strike, but you have to stick up for what's right. Absolutely. There's no, I can't say any more on that in that sense.
The media reports that one of the largest stakeholders is a hedge fund based in New York. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on a company like CP being controlled and majority owned by a financial institution? What do they know about workers?
They probably don't know anything about workers. They know more about the bottom line. But at the end of the day, when you have a publicly traded company, that's what you're exposed to it from time to time. I mean, the largest shareholder in the Canadian National is Bill Gates. So I mean, that's out of our control in that sense. I mean, probably controlling it, management-wise. That's a different story in the sense of the everyday operation. We need people that are railroaders to run this place, but at the same time, that's out of my hands in that sense too.
I know this is just your opinion, but can you give me some insights into what local managers, such as those who are here at the Smiths Falls rail line and rail station, how do you think they feel about the company's decisions and the strike itself?
Well, I don't think I can't really speak for them, but I mean, as far as the management here, they are actually originally from the rank and file. Like that, they are engineers, conductors. They started doing what we do, so they understand our side of things too. I can't speak for them on the other side of it because they are in management, but they're in a precarious position. They have to do what they have to do, and we have to do what we have to do.
If you had 5 minutes to speak with the interim CEO, Tobias, about the strike and about what the company has been doing and its decision to really assault the pension, what would you say?
Well, I'd need more than 5 minutes, but I don't know. I just think, for me, the guys that have been here and the girls, women, the people that are in the rank and file today, that are in the pension plan, their pension should be excluded. If they want to cap new hires that wouldn't know any different, and these are the rules and regulations of the job, they would have to say yes or no to it. But I mean, the people that are here that have had an existing pension, it shouldn't change. Period. Other than that, I can't say any more on that.
Federal Labor Minister Lisa Raitt is now threatening back-to-work legislation. What's your response to that decision?
Well, the unfortunate part about that is there's a lot of people affected by the strike, and I mean, we got we ship this railway is 40% of all the goods transported in Canada. It's transported by rail, over 80% between the two railways. So you can imagine how many millions of dollars of freight that are sitting there. Unfortunately, we probably will get back to work, ordered back to work, but I mean, at the same time, you do have to kind of feel for those people that need their goods moved and stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of a catch-22. I mean, you have to move the freight. It is. I mean, but that's not basically what this is about. Unfortunately, that gets in the way of collective bargaining. And if the company would have wanted to bargain in good faith, then we wouldn't be in this situation. It's as simple as that.
What makes this round of negotiations, the strike vote, and relationship between the union and the company different than in the years past?
I think the big difference is this pension issue. I think it's we've been on strike before, but the biggest issue this time, and I think we're more solid as a union than we ever were. It's the pension issue. That's a huge thing. I mean, it's not what you want to do, but at the same time, you have to protect your interest. I mean, it's just the way it is.
In addition to the Conservative government's repeated contempt for fair and free collective bargaining, what also needs to be discussed here is the internal corporate battle taking place in CP Rail. On May 17th, only hours before a shareholders meeting in Calgary, Canadian Pacific CEO and President Fred Green resigned. Another 5 directors, including CP Chairman John Cleghorn, announced they would not run for re-election to the company's board. Both the CEO and the directors anticipated being ousted by the shareholders at the meeting. The resignations are attributed to the activist shareholder William Ackman, who heads the Pershing Square Capital Management hedge fund based in New York. It was revealed in October that Pershing Square became CP's largest shareholder, spending $1.4 billion to secure a 14.1% share of the company.
Ackman's ability to sway CP shareholders was made clear when he managed to get the Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board and Ontario Teachers' Pension Plan to endorse his call for a new direction in CP. Ackman-backed nominees now dominate CP's board of directors, and the company's interim CEO, Stephen Tobias, is also a director at Pershing Square. Ackman intends to appoint Hunter Harrison, the retired CEO of rival railroad Canadian National Railway, as the head of CP in the long term. All the more remarkable has been CP Rail's quadrupling of first-quarter profits in 2012, far exceeding analysts' expectations. These results were made public on April 20th, a month before the shareholders voted on the company's governance. Earnings per share were about 300% above its 2011 first-quarter numbers. CP also reported that there were double-digit percentage improvements in train speeds, terminal dwell, active cars online, and car miles per day compared to the year before. These results were still considered lacking by CP's largest shareholders, notably the Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board, which stated, quote, "We believe that Pershing's proposals for change provide the greatest likelihood for long-term sustainable improvement."
For pension plans and hedge funds, the measure of financial performance is rated by shareholder returns and not profitability, productivity, or market share alone. Leading shareholders maintain that these targets can be achieved by lowering the railway's operating ratio, the percentage of revenues required to pay for operations. Under former CEO Fred Green, CP set a target to bring the ratio down from 80% to 70% for 2014, but Pershing insists that a goal of 65% by 2015 is achievable. Ultimately, this involves an assault on wages and pension liabilities. What these events suggest is that CP's governance and corporate strategy are being determined by the interests of finance capital, namely the hedge funds and pension funds that possess a dominant share in the company. The slate of directors nominated by Pershing represent an effort to accelerate financial returns on investment by slashing corporate operating costs rather than through a process of industrial expansion.
The case of CP also exposes the role of pension funds as central points of contention leading up to negotiations. This was certainly the case in the year-long strike by members of USW Locals 6500 and 6200 against international mining giant Vale in the nickel belt town of Sudbury, Ontario. With assets exceeding $1 trillion, there is a tremendous amount of wealth invested in Canada's registered pension plans. Considering that employers are responsible for contributing a dominant share to pension funds, 63%, corporations are attempting to lighten this responsibility at the bargaining table. Between 2009 and 2010, the freight carrier's pension contributions increased from $500 million to $625 million. After CP workers went on strike, the company said that it could no longer afford, quote, pricey pensions, and admitted to seeking to reduce what it called generous payouts to future retirees, as well as scaling back health and dental benefits for its pensioners. As the company's VP of Human Resources and Industrial Relations, Peter Edwards, stated in a memo, quote, "Whichever way the Teamsters prefer, we simply must address our legacy pension, increase our competitiveness, and minimize collateral damage to our customers' business." Either through a negotiated settlement or binding arbitration, the company argues that the union leadership must acknowledge what the company describes as a pension crisis by making concessions.
The Conservative government's wielding of back-to-work legislation as a mechanism through which to secure labor peace has undoubtedly empowered employers over workers during pension negotiations. Despite the appearance of a pension crisis at CP, it is clear that the company's leading shareholders and their newly elected board of directors want to enhance share value by reducing pension contribution, amongst other measures. As the company's performance indicates, it is not a question of profitability, but who benefits from the generation of corporate wealth. Mr. Edwards talks of supporting the future prosperity of CP is fundamentally the future prosperity of Pershing, shareholders, and financial capital.
With back-to-work legislation, the dispute will go to arbitration. What happens with pensions is up in the air. There seems to be no willingness to defy back-to-work legislation, as the workers see arbitration as a better solution than a lengthy strike against the company seeking such drastic pension reductions. However, a few of the workers Rank and File Radio spoke to were aware of the dispute between Cup W and the government over Rate's appointment of a former federal Tory candidate, Guy Dufour, as arbitrator between Canada Post and the Postal Workers Union, or the Rate-appointed arbitrator's imposition of a previously rejected agreement upon Air Canada flight attendants in November.
CP rail workers are well informed about the internal operations of the company, and many of them are stockholders themselves. With tremendous commitment to their work and a first-hand knowledge of how the Canadian economy functions in terms of how goods are transported and wealth distributed, one has to wonder if this group of 4,800 workers would be open to bold proposals about restructuring the Canadian economy along environmentally sustainable lines in which the railways provide the transportation backbone. Needless to say, the wider labour movement will look upon the strike and get much the same message as it did with Air Canada workers and the postal workers. The federal government is no friend of labour, but a strong ally of corporate power.